Why, hello there. I'm so glad you tuned in for this week's episode of Lutherans Tell Jokes. Some of them are good. All of them are for you. But here, we're going to tell some jokes, and I hope you get at least a chuckle and maybe a belly laugh out of a few of them. Thanks for tuning in. Cha-cha-cha. You know, I wrote a book on penguins. You know, in hindsight, writing it on paper would have been better. Speaking of hindsight, someone asked me, and they said, "So what is your superpower?" And I said, "Hindsight." And they said, "That is the stupidest superpower I've ever heard." And I said, "Yeah, I see that now." What do you call 12 rabbits walking in reverse? A receding hairline. They don't get any better than this. You know what? I just grilled a chicken, and it still wouldn't tell me why it crossed the road. So Bob Hargett wants to know, where do forest rangers go to get away from it all? I wonder that too now. So what do you call a belt made of clocks? A waste of time.
Once was a man who was near his death. He had worked very hard during his life, and he wanted to be able to bring part of his riches with him. He asked God if he could, and an angel of the Lord appeared and said, "No, you don't bring anything with you to heaven." And he said, "Please go ask God if he can bend the rules just a little bit for me." So the angel returned and said, "God has decided you are allowed one suitcase." So he quickly packed his one suitcase full of gold bars. And soon thereafter, he passed away. He arrived at the pearly gates, and St. Peter said, "No, you can't bring a suitcase with you." And he said, "But God said I could." So St. Peter went and checked on this. And he came back and he said, "You're right. You can bring one suitcase in, but I need to see what's in it." And he was very curious to see what was so important to this man that he needed to pack it and bring to heaven. So he opened it up, took one look, and said, "You brought pavement?"
So you know what? Did you hear they've opened a restaurant on the moon? Yeah, the food is great, but it has no atmosphere. Here are a few one-liners that were sent in to Lutherans Tell Jokes by Bob and Nancy Hargett. I went to a bookstore and I asked the saleswoman, "Where's the self-help section?" And she said, "Well, that kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it?" When you are finally holding all the cards, why does everyone else then decide to play chess? And why is it the only time that the world is beating down your door is when you're in the bathroom? Inquiring minds want to know.
You know you're Lutheran if, when you're watching Star Wars and they say, "May the Force be with you," you automatically respond, "and also with you."
So, the other day there was a kid looking at this plaque on the wall, and it had a bunch of names written down on it. And the pastor walked by, and the little kid said, "Hey, Pastor, I've got a question for you. What are all these names written on the wall for?" And the pastor said, "Well, son, these are names of people that died in the service." And the kid was that the 8:30 service or the 11 o'clock one? Service gets kind of dangerous, I guess.
Did you know that in Germany they call pastors German shepherds?
A die-hard golfer went to a fortune teller and asked her if there were golf courses in heaven. She looked in her crystal ball and she came back and she said, "I've got good news and I've got bad news." What's the good news? Well, the good news is there are golf courses and they are spectacular and amazing and lush and everybody loves them. Well, what's the bad news? You have a tea time tomorrow morning.
So a priest, a rabbi, and a pastor walk into a bar. And the bartender says, "What? Is this some kind of joke?" Priest and a pastor and a rabbit walk into a bar. And the rabbit says, "I might be a typo." So do you know why elephants paint their toenails red? So they can hide in cherry trees. Have you ever seen an elephant in a cherry tree? It's because they're good at it.